Good afternoon, and welcome to Broadband Breakfast Live Online for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Feel free to pop a comment in the chat if you can hear well or not well. It's just me today, and we're going to be talking about the preview, or we will be previewing the conference that's coming up. Speeding BEAD Summit, taking place just 4 weeks from tomorrow. And we're going to be talking about the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, which may or may not be renamed by the Speeding BEAD Summit, but it's Speed for BEAD Act that has been proposed and has gotten some degree of traction and action. But right now, that Energy and Commerce Committee is very busy with some other work right now. They had an all-night session, I believe, talking about the budget resolution and the spectrum pipeline. I think we're talking about 600 megahertz of spectrum that will conceivably net out 88 billion in revenue, and that's why it's part of this budget bill, this budget package. So that's what the committees, at least three committees, Ways and Means, Energy and Commerce, and Agriculture Committee, are considering on Capitol Hill right now. But BEAD and the Broadband Infrastructure Program is very significant to many members of Congress and obviously to many people in this industry. Let me just back up a second. Welcome again to our weekly program. You've probably been here before, and we're grateful to those of you who set aside some time on Wednesday. These are available live, and we also have recordings available of them. Normally, we put them behind the Broadband Breakfast Club paywall, but we'll leave this one out available for everyone because we're going to be talking about an event coming up that we're very excited about and hope that you are too. And in just a few minutes, I'll talk through the program that we have planned, as well as some of the issues that are in play as we kind of speed into that last several weeks before the Speeding BEAD Summit. But before we get to that, I want to give a shout out to the sponsors of Broadband Breakfast that enable us to do this free Broadband Breakfast Live Online program, now 5+ years. Today, we want to recognize Nokia. Nokia's fiber access solutions can help service providers not only meet their connectivity commitments and seize broadband opportunities, but also can give their customers the ultimate in-home connectivity experience. Give your subscribers future-proof broadband now with Nokia's fiber access solutions. Learn more at nokia.com/fiber. That's Nokia, NOKIA.com/fiber. And we thank Nokia as well as all of the sponsors of Broadband Breakfast to enable this program and our other activities to continue. As you all know, we publish news every day on America's broadband build-out, but not just on the infrastructure, on the impact that broadband plays and has in society. It impacts the healthcare that we have, the way we work. I mean, work has changed so much over the 5 years since the pandemic, and it's kind of rarer than not that people, work from a place 5 days a week. There's a lot of telecommuting going on. There's a lot of remote and hybrid education. It's part and parcel. My brother-in-law is a professor at Virginia Tech, and his style of teaching has changed completely in the past 5 years because of the role of technology, the role that broadband internet connectivity plays. And so we care and we report about these, and we also serve as a community, as a resource, a place that people can talk through and discuss and contribute to the comments and the discussions on these. And of course, we do events, in-person events. So bear with me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we can just talk a little bit about the events that are available on Broadband Breakfast Live Online. Thanks, Steve and Jimmy, for saying that the audio was fine. I appreciate those heads up there. And we do have questions. I will take questions, put them in the Q&A board. Hopefully we'll get more rather than less this time, so we can just take as many as we have. So we'll go on as long as we need to. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to share the screen for the page broadbandbreakfast.com/past events. It's also events. If you just click on the events, it will take you to this page. So we've been doing about 4 or 5 events a year. We're really excited about this upcoming one. But before I start to talk about the Speeding BEAD Summit taking place on June 12th, I want to tell you a little bit about maybe going back a few years. Okay, so all of our previous events are also here. The one event that's been the most consistent that we've done is the Digital Infrastructure Investment Summit. We hold that every fall, and we'll do that again this year, but we're not focused on that. That's one we've now done 6 times, and we focus there on the interaction of the financial world and the broadband infrastructure or digital infrastructure world. And we'll talk more about that later, of course. But what I wanted to share is a little bit about the summit we did 2 years ago. First, we did the Made in America Summit, and then we did the BEAD Implementation Summit. And so I'm going to share just a little bit about both of these here. We've temporarily made these available to anyone who's a member of the Broadband Breakfast community or Breakfast Club. So even if you're just a free member, you're still able to view all of the videos from these sessions temporarily. This Made in America Summit 2 years ago brought together the issues of infrastructure, but also the issues of advanced energy, green technologies. Obviously, that's very much in the crosshairs right now. That's how the leaders in Congress are proposing to pay for tax cut proposals or extension of existing tax cut that would otherwise expire, is by basically targeting a lot of the subsidies and promotion of advanced energy. So that plus infrastructure, broadband infrastructure, plus CHIPS Act was the focus of this event. And again, look forward to any thoughts or reactions you all have on these events. But then we followed that up a few months later with the BEAD Implementation Summit. Okay, now again, we all thought BEAD was just around the corner. It's taken a lot longer, and in apologize for that disruption. Thank you for all being here, making sure that we are still live streaming. And I was talking at that moment that I was disconnected about the BEAD Implementation Summit. And so I'm going to go back there to the BEAD Implementation Summit. We also talked quite a bit about matching funds, the role of private sector investment and public-private partnerships. And then we had a bit of a town hall discussion on some of the complications, Buy America, regulatory compliance. And many of those issues are either going to be resolved, either they were resolved or they are going to be resolved as part of changes to BEAD. Okay, so now flash forward to the current day. And, we're 110, 120 days into the Trump administration. There's been a lot of movement on a lot of fronts because of the change of power, because we live in a democracy and executive branch changes and even, some houses of Congress change. And so because the Republicans really control everything right now, the House, the Senate, and the White House, we're seeing those priorities being expressed, right? And so what are those priorities? Well, energy, that's clearly one priority. We previewed some of the things we might see last December at the Broadband in the Next Administration, Broadband in the Trump administration event. I'm not going to go through those. About 2.5 months ago, we had the Data Centers, Nuclear Power, and Broadband event, where we brought people together to talk about some of the energy issues with specific reference to nuclear power and how that may be necessary, given that data centers are already gobbling up 4% of America's electricity and may go up to 12%. There may be a tripling of data centers' energy use in the next 5 years. So here we are at the topic of our discussion here today, the Speeding BEAD Summit. It's a one-day conference, Thursday, June 12th. Still have early bird registration for 175. And we are at this conference going to directly dive into what are the ways that BEAD could be changed, is going to be changed, either through administrative action or through congressional action. I've already referenced the streamlining program efficiency and expanding deployment for BEAD. That's the acronym that drives the Speed for BEAD Act that the subcommittee chairman, Richard Hudson, has introduced. And it's gotten widespread acclaim from the industry. Haven't heard as much from critics of it, because right now, quite frankly, the concern that many people have is that we're not speeding BEAD, we're slowing BEAD, right? And as we all know, there's a 90-day pause that was put on the BEAD program on April 22nd. So just about 3 weeks ago, the NTI issued a 90-day extension or pause in the program. So we are, of course, in the middle of that, right? We're not even 1 month into that pause that will last till mid-July. And so what we are doing at this event is you can think of it as an early stage discussion about the issues and complications. So I'm going to kind of pop this screen up here. Again, this is all available. Just go to broadbandbreakfast.com/SBS for Speeding BEAD Summit, or click on the Speeding BEAD Summit, and you can see these topics. So we've got these 3 topics. We may tweak this a little bit still in the next week or so, but these are the 3 most important things that we see right now driving or interacting with the BEAD program. And the first one is the high cost thresholds and the future of fiber and BEAD. And as many of you watchers and readers of Broadband Breakfast know, the BEAD program has had a fiber preference, okay, for lack of a better word. The Biden administration acknowledged there was a fiber preference. It is true that IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, speaks about tech neutrality, but it's also true that it speaks about certain speeds and certain latency goals. So I think, a case can be made by all sides that, the administration put its thumb on the scale or didn't put its thumb on the scale for one technology or another. But what is clear is that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and others have emphasized that there may be a removal of that preference. How and in what way is, of course, the big question. And so our panel here will consider reports that the Commerce Department and the National Telecommunications and Information Administration might seek to deploy a federally required high-cost cap, and that could redirect funds towards potentially lower-cost solutions like low Earth orbit satellites. And so this panel is going to dive right into this question. Now, the BEAD program has always had this term, the extremely high-cost threshold for states to set, but it was never conceived of, again, under the program thus far, as a federal limit, because what the numbers might be for Virginia could be very different from Wyoming, right? And that's, again, part of the beauty of the way the program was designed. And really that kind of leads into our next topic, which is about the state versus federal balance in BEAD. and our panel program highlights that the design of the BEAD program gives states or gave states considerable leeway to design and implement their broadband builds. But the question is, will that change? Will there be a changed approach as we get to this the changed guidance that we're expecting from the Commerce Department? We'll have at least a third panel, maybe also a fourth panel, but we're going to focus in this third one on a new need for AI skills training. This panel highlights the fact that by whatever name, successful broadband deployment efforts require digital adoption and digital training. And the rapidly expanding role of artificial intelligence has created a new need for AI skills training. So we're going to speak about whether efforts at digital inclusion and workforce skills training now also need to include AI skills training. I'm going to go ahead and close my screen. Again, you can go to this, you can sign up for updates or register for the event. It's $175 under the early bird rate, and that's available right now. And I want to point out that if you are a member of the Broadband Breakfast Club, our paid premium version, you get $100 off registration. So, off the top immediately, $175 becomes $75. And as a member of the Breakfast Club, you'll also get, access to the webcast and access to all of the videos at no additional charge as well. So let's go ahead and stop the share. And we still have people here, which is awesome. I've laid out a little bit of the program as we've envisioned it. We look forward to making announcements and we do have panelists that we're eager to get out there. We're waiting on a couple additional ones for both the moderators and the panelists. But I want to turn it over to each of you to some of the questions that you have. I do see several in the Q&A tab, so thank you very much for chiming in. I do see a couple points that screen share wasn't working, but it sounds like it did get working. So I'm going to dismiss those. Let's start with the anonymous question we have from an anonymous attendee. Do you have a guess or have you heard any chatter on what high cost thresholds Secretary Lutnick might put in place, which obviously impacts fiber? Yes, I have heard chatter. I don't feel confident enough in my chatter to report. And clearly, this is a very, very, very important topic. It could, as the anonymous attendee asks, kill the role of fiber in BEAD if the high cost threshold were set to be too low. And there's obviously many arguments on all sides, but I just think that that's what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so sign up and attend to attend panel 1 at the conference. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to give you more satisfaction on that one. Anonymous attendee, Ron Suarez. Hey, thank you, Ron. Thanks for being such an active questioner on our Broadband Breakfast Live online programs. Ron asks, ACP has given some money to poor people for them to give it to big corporations. What about DPIN? DPIN, I am not sure what that acronym means, so feel free to elaborate a little bit more, Ron. What about DPIN financing, community-owned infrastructure networks, COIN? Okay, another acronym I haven't really heard about, although I've certainly heard of community broadband, community networks, community-owned networks, to promote local economies with tools like decentralized data centers for smart agriculture and so forth. Well, listen, thanks. This is, of course, one of the big arguments about local ownership, right? Community ownership, local ownership, is it really gives the community the role, or at least a closer tab on the infrastructure in place. And thanks for elaborating, Ron. DPIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks. I mean, I don't know what more I can add other than this is a strong point for why we want to have local engagement and local networks, community networks, or co-ops, right? Or traditionally a lot of small rural telecom networks were privately owned by families, by mom and pop operators. There were many years that the big telcos did not go to or serve large pockets of the United States, right? And of course, the United States has had a long-standing, I don't know whether public-private is probably too strong a word for the way the AT&T telephone network developed, but clearly there's public oversight from the Federal Communications Commission, from state public utilities commissions, right? And with the Telecom Act of 1996, the Universal Service Fund became more formalized, and the role of the USF in basically ensuring funding for those areas that would otherwise cost much more to be served. I think I'm going on this thread here because of the importance of local infrastructure. I think it's vital, Ron. And look, it just bears repeating that satellite don't have none of that, right? I mean, if you're served by a satellite network, you do not have any local infrastructure there. So just a point to be made. Not that there aren't lots of good reasons to have satellite. In fact, I was just here at the National Press Club. I stopped by and heard the Satellite Industry Association folks. Jay Schwartz of the FCC Space Bureau gave a short remarks. We have a piece on Broadband Breakfast about the satellite industry and how it's grown. Surprisingly, it's only grown 3% over the last year. In part that's because video satellite is contracting. Otherwise, it would have grown 6%. But be that as it may, now I'm just riffing. Josh Williams, hey, Josh, thanks for being on here. Will there be a live stream option for the Speeding BEAD Summit? Yes, there will be a live stream available. We'll be announcing that a little bit closer to the date. Will be less than the registration price to attend in person. And once again, if you are a Broadband Breakfast Club member, you will be able to watch the live stream at no cost, no additional cost. Thanks for those questions. Let's go ahead and check in the chat for additional questions. Thanks for being here again and for spending your time with us. Okay, some questions in here. Again, I prefer you put them in the Q&A tab. It's a little bit easier, but I'm still checking the other spaces here. Christopher Cook asks, realizing it's a guess, but would you say it is best case, but what would you say is the best case date for the new streamlined BEAD rules to be published? The best case date is June 12th, the date of the Speeding BEAD Summit. I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. June 11th is the best case date. In all seriousness, we actually will be having the summit the day after the National Governors Association meeting, which includes many state broadband officers. That's taking place in Ohio. So there's going to be talk about that. It is conceivable. It is conceivable that it will come out in early mid-June, but we just don't know. Thanks for the question, Chris. I go to my questions on the Q&A tab. Michael Pitch. Hello, Michael. Thanks for being such an active listener here. White paper where fiber doesn't fit. Link to the white paper provided by Wesco. Is this just excuses not to do fiber, don't you think? I'm not 100% sure if I understand the question, Michael. I think, it should be made clear that we love fiber at Broadband Breakfast, but we also love the role that wireless plays. And you can't have a broadband ecosystem without wired, wireless, and satellite. I don't think that's too controversial to say, right? I mean, this is the three modes of connectivity. And low Earth orbit satellites, we've gone from hundreds to, I think, 12,000 satellites in orbit over 10 years, right? I mean, this is a huge acceleration of satellite connectivity, and the vast bulk of this has been driven by low Earth orbit satellites. And because low Earth orbit satellites are more like 300, 400 miles up in the air rather than tens of thousands of miles, you don't have the huge latency problems that you have with geosynchronous satellites. Now, again, I'm not saying there's no use cases or there's not traditional broadband use cases for geosynchronous satellites, but LEO has changed the game. There's just no doubt about it. And in addition to LEO satellites changing the game, wireless. And I mean, this is not controversial at all, right? You need to have a wireless and wired infrastructure. I mean, I'm on a wireless connection right now. The connection is through Wi-Fi to a MetroNet style connectivity, and that's the way most of us experience. We experience internet constantly in hybrid networks. Okay, so I think that the way that arguments about fiber not being the 100% everywhere case, you're talking about ways that you make sure you are connecting and working from you got a network that's working everywhere and for everyone. All right, continuing down my list here of questions in the Q&A tab as well as the chat tab. Steve Pastorkovich asks, with regard to the federal-state balance, what might compliance look like? This can be confusing for states and providers alike for new programs. Providers will have to report to states, and states in turn will have to report to NTIA. Might NTIA provide guidance for what states need to report, and then might states in turn provide clear compliance guidelines for providers? I think you're describing the best case, the way it should work. Government should not be a Rube Goldberg contraption. It should be straightforward. There should be simple rules. I think that the consensus is that the BEAD program had too many rules. I mean, this is the consensus now. What may not have been the consensus a year ago or 6 months ago, but the consensus now is that it slowed itself down a little bit, maybe on the margin, with rules about climate change rules. Not saying they're not a good thing, with rules about wages, even the Buy America rules. Okay, right? That clearly took time and addition, and everyone stepped up to do it, and I applaud those who did. But it's clear now that there have been a lot of rules associated with BEAD. Now, how are those going to be changed, right? We'll see, right? And I think Steve's kind of laying it all out makes it clear that the states have an incredibly important role in this process. So that is something that I wanted to to highlight, and appreciate your question, Steve. It's great. We look forward to a vibrant discussion. We plan to have folks from the civil society. We plan to have folks from industry. We have confirmed attendees from the state broadband world, and we are extremely hopeful that we will also have a good contingent from Congress, from the House and Senate, participating in the Speeding BEAD Summit. So, this is exactly the type of question, Steve, that we want to get at and hope to elucidate more at the event on June the 12th. Okay, Christine Hallquist, State Broadband Officer from Vermont. Thanks for being with us, Christine. Christine says, we ran some numbers a year ago, and the Rural Broadband Association came up with similar numbers. It would take 28,000 satellites, that's 3 or more times what's available now, maybe even 4 times, to meet the needs of unserved addresses. With these kinds of numbers, random failures of satellites can cause catastrophic sequence of failures. Christine, I don't disagree. I think, you and I both appreciate the role that fiber plays. You've been very public about not just the role that fiber plays in the telecom infrastructure, but the role it plays in the energy infrastructure. And your role in particular, formerly with the largest, I believe is the largest, one of the largest power providers in the state of Vermont, kind of shows that you've been thinking about this for a long, long time. And again, kudos to you for that energy and telecom interface. And I second or third or 10 millionth the point you're making about satellites. Now, again, I mean, this is just 100% true that the capacity questions are going to be much more acute. So it's always misleading to say that, yeah, just like take the money and give it to Elon Musk, right? No, that does not solve the problem. It creates more problems. So thank you, Christine, for that point. Dan Smith asks, what firms and states lead in low-cost undergrounding fiber? best cost per mile. Hurricanes and fiber resistance and low maintenance justify higher initial cost fiber. All good points. Again, look, I know we may be like lean towards the fiber crowd, but Dan, you're great in this regard. And I think that it's quite important to highlight. Look, again, I don't want to throw out some numbers here and numbers there, but it's 100% clear that the cost per address has come down in recent years. I mean, normally people always used to routinely talk about 4,000, 3,000. I mean, I'm talking for suburban areas and more dense areas, 4,000, 3,000 per home for fiber. Now you hear numbers that are lower, 1,500, 1,200 even. And again, you got to be careful because sometimes these are numbers per home, and sometimes these are numbers per house pass. And those are different because you have additional costs to get to each home. And we're just talking about the, quote, easy to serve areas. I mean, we're not really getting at the unserved and underserved areas, which is what the BEAD program is all about. So it wouldn't be surprising, and I know someone asked a question earlier, it wouldn't be surprising to see a $10,000 price point per home. That would seem to me to be a reasonable price point when you're talking about deeply unserved areas and when you're talking about making sure you can get the connectivity that's going to last. Now, again, I'm not saying 100% or 99.99 of America must have fiber connections. But look, that's kind of where we came at the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. The bipartisan infrastructure law was all about getting that kind of connectivity so we don't need to come back in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years and say, oh, yeah, we just subsidized a bunch of points that don't have any infrastructure in the ground. So thanks for these points. And I hope I'm being responsive to the questions that you're asking me. Thank you again for being with us and taking these times. I think Michael's basically making another good point here. Again, Michael, we have waited 30 years for fiber, but now we are impatient with waiting 4 years for BEAD. Okay, thanks. Good point. Josh Williams asks, I may be fishing for a preview of the summit, but can you share the organization or individual scheduled to speak for the AI skills training panel? Also, what do you think about what skills should we train on prompt engineering? Great question, Josh. We are very excited that, and I should have mentioned this previously, we have 3 sponsors thus far for the Speeding BEAD Summit. Those sponsors include our gold sponsor, National Digital Inclusion Alliance, our silver sponsors, including the Fiber Broadband Association and Gaia, an OSS BSS solutions provider. So you can expect that our sponsors, including our gold sponsor, will be participating in some of these discussions on these topics, including the points and discussions about AI skills training. But we haven't, again, we haven't fixed and finalized. We're still 4 weeks and a day out, and we are, really, really excited about the discussion. We're excited to include this discussion about AI skills training and its role as a part and parcel of the BEAD program, the infrastructure program. What skills we should train on? Prompt engineering is actually a great one. So can't say more than that right now, Josh. But thank you for your interest and your interest. Michael Pitch, once again, do the math on 10,000 per home across 100 years. Thank you. Good point. And Dan Smith says, what state will be first to 100% served? I love it, Dan. This is great. We need like a competition, and we'll track it, and we'll first to fiber, right, or first to 100%, right? And Dan, we got to get you and others from Hawaii talking about the very interesting initiatives that are going on out there. We report on those on Broadband Breakfast, and we certainly want to keep covering them. Okay, I'm now going back to the questions. Keep putting them in the Q&A tabs if you got them. Like I said, I will go there first. But in the chat, we have a couple more questions. Let's push down the queue. Randy Leaning, welcome, Randy. He's highlighting a white paper on the role of LEO satellites, including a discussion of the NTIA's alternative technology policy notice. It speaks directly to market sizing, capacity, and other issues. And the link is right there. Randy, we're also happy to put that on the page for this event so people are able to click on that link and go see that. Ron Suarez has another comment about crowdfunding. Not a meme coin. Perplexity has helped your organization, Ron, to begin imagining how we might crowdfund NFTs for community internet. And you've published the results on a Notion page. Again, we'll put that on the page as well for people to follow through. Natalie Hopkins says that she was reading prompt engineering is not as much a hot job since AI is improving, and it just is just a skill as part of a basket of AI skills for all jobs. Excellent point. I'm not saying I have a definitive answer on that right now, but clearly it's prompted, pun intended, some discussion. We're basically more than halfway through our hour. We do not need to go the whole hour. We can stop, but I am going to give another 2 to 4 minutes for people to assemble any additional thoughts or questions that you have, and we'll keep going. Okay, Todd's asked another question. Perhaps you can publish a 50-state index of broadband access, a running total in an infographic format for state broadband offices and ISP staff to promote and share with stakeholders. Excellent idea, Todd. Let's actually dialogue offline about that. I'd love to engage with you and others on this. We do have on Broadband Breakfast, I'll put this in the chat, we do have our state by state collection of stories and data points. This is at, once again, broadbandbreakfast.com/US. Okay, so hopefully easy to remember. Just go to broadbandbreakfast.com/US, and you are able to see all of the collections of pages about every state and territory in the United States and the focus that each is having on different aspects of BEAD or other programs that will get broadband everywhere. Again, I'll give another minute or so. It's great to see so many of you, and thank you for being as active as ever. I might as well say, actually, just a quick upcoming Broadband Breakfast Live online sessions. Next week, we're going to be talking about a really important topic. I know I say this every time we talk about pole attachments, right? This one is going to be about locates, okay? So what are locates? Locates are the ways that local governments work with infrastructure providers to safely place fiber in the ground. And so we're going to explore the intersection of underground infrastructure, public policy, and broadband deployment. This event next Wednesday at 12 noon will talk through the way we're dealing with the shortage of trained locators, a patchwork of state digital infrastructure laws, network deployment that often faces delays, damage, and rising costs. So, you kind of have this balance between, when you're talking fiber deployment, between are we going to do poles or are we going to do underground conduit? And sometimes that involves digging, and sometimes, rarely, it involves pulling fiber through existing conduits. But we're going to talk through this really nitty-gritty topic. This is our topic next week for Broadband Breakfast Live Online. The topic the week after next, we're going to be talking through global positioning and specifically the challenges and opportunities that alternatives to GPS present. What might more diversified PNT, positioning, navigation, and training landscape look like? We're going to talk through that with a panel of experts. And then we're doing a special Broadband Breakfast Live Online from Fiber Connect on Monday, June 2nd, at same bat channel, 12 noon Eastern time. We're going to be live from Fiber Connect, and that's a bonus episode because we will also be doing our regularly scheduled Broadband Breakfast Live Online that Wednesday and every Wednesday. So those are 3 of our upcoming programs that are taking place in the lead up to the Speeding BEAD Summit. We hope you will, register to attend or join the Broadband Breakfast Club. It's $590 a year, or as a member of the broadband community, you can get access for $490 a year. And we hope you will take us up on that opportunity. Feel free to email us. You can email me, drew@breakfast.media, or support@breakfast.media if you've got any questions about that offer or any of our upcoming events. Quickly checking to see if we have any additional questions or comments, and it looks like we do. So I'm going to go back to the Q&A section. The White House has announced pullback on Digital Equity Act funding. Some seem to be conflating this with BEAD. Does this confusion appear to be widespread? Any tips for clarifying for those who don't do this every day? Thanks, anonymous attendee. I should have mentioned this earlier. This obviously was a very big item this past week. We, of course, put the news out there as soon as it was available when Donald Trump posted on Truth Social that he was canceling DEI Act funding. The same arguments that have been made about other appropriated funds are being and should be made about these appropriated funds. But it's correct to point out that this is separate from BEAD. It was in the same legislation, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So it's understandable that these might be linked together, but they aren't together, right? So BEAD can stand on its own with or without a connection to the Digital Equity Act funding. So I mean, the point of is just, we're talking about infrastructure, right? Broadband infrastructure is what we're talking about. And again, digital equity serves and supports that, but it's not intrinsically connected. So hope I've done something to address that question. Mark Revis asks, assuming that satellite gets a bigger share of BEAD funding, what form do you think it would take? Subsidies to launch more satellite, subsidies to lower the cost for low-income customers? All the above, potentially. A great question that needs to be talked about. I think an underappreciated point is the cost of the device, the in-home, the receiver, the satellite receiver. Plus, of course, satellite connectivity tends to be higher cost. 120 is the number in my head. I know that's maybe higher than perhaps it is everywhere or is everywhere, but I think that if we are going to have more satellites, that's going to be part of the discussion. Jimmy Schaeffler asked, within the past few months, our closest ally to the north, Canada, canceled a very large agreement with the US-based LEO carrier, reportedly won over $100 million. Can I opine how that might affect the future growth of broadband in the US? Probably won't have a big impact on that, if any, Jimmy. I just, don't think that really, again, don't mean to be an American chauvinist, but Canada is a very small country relative to the United States. And, it's an interesting market, very diversified, very spread out. So that's clearly an issue. Maybe we should look to Canada for what they've done with remote locations, but I just don't think this particular contract will have any impact. Mark Visconi offers a couple of observations about selecting which technology provides service is really constrained by available funding. I mean, this is a fair point. I'm not going to be able to read your whole comment here, Mark, but others can see it, of course. It is 100% correct that this is kind of a math problem, right? And so you've got an amount of money, how much you're going to provide with fiber, how much you're going to provide with wireless, how much you're going to provide with satellite. And, we got computers, they do math, solve the math problem, right? So thanks for your comment. Thanks for weighing in. I'll look at this a little closer offline. Josh Williams asks, any plans to hold a session highlighting the economic impact benefit of broadband adoption? You're starting to work on exploring this topic to support clients pivoting from BEAD funding to alternative options. Great point, Josh. Stand by. It's possible that we may include some further discussion about affordability and adoption in the summit. Thanks again, everyone, for being part of the discussion here, for joining with us in this preview session where we're talking through the Speeding BEAD Summit. I actually do see a couple more quick ones in the chat tab. Jim Gerbig asks, would it be possible for us to have a breakfast that looks at the best practice in GIS in our country and our industry? Yes, that's a great topic. Let's stay in touch on that, Jim. Ron Suarez asks, say DPI instead of DEI. That's great. Digital public infrastructure, like that very much. And it counters the oligarchs. Thanks again for sharing additional links. We'll put many, many of these links on the page for this event. It is 12:45, so we've used 3/4 of our time. Like I said, we don't need to go the whole hour. So we'll give back the remaining 15 minutes. Thank you for spending this 45 minutes with us today. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday when we're going to be talking about underground locates, and the week after when we're going to be talking about global positioning, and then in Nashville for Fiber Connect or online, Broadband Breakfast Live online. And don't forget, mark June 12th, Thursday, June 12th on your calendars, in person, 8:30 at Clyde's Gallery Place, or online as a member of the Broadband Breakfast Club or through purchasing a webinar access. Thanks again. Have a great day.